We've all been scammed, hacked, rugged, and grifted beyond disbelief. So the question is, how do you create more secure and formally verified systems where anyone can deploy a smart contract and deploy liquidity and feel secure? The EVM is hot garbage. It doesn't scale. If we ever want to bring our billion users to Facebook, we can't have the chain going down 100 transactions per second, and we can't get hacked for $50 million a year.
Today's show is brought to you by Mezzo, a new home for Bitcoin holders to cultivate Bitcoin and grow wealth together. Use your BTC on Mezzo to unlock real utility and honest yield. Join Bitcoin's first open source economic layer today. All right, the co-founder of Movement Labs, Rushi Manche, on with us today. Rushi, so good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, Zach, thanks for having me on. Super excited to be in stake with us today.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to dig into today, whether it's kind of what y'all are trying to do with the Move programming language and building out some of the projects that we've had on Coinage before and chatted with, including Sui and Aptos. But also, I think, more importantly, perhaps you might say, this idea of really growing all of the projects that are using Move. So why don't we just start there for people who haven't heard about what Movement Labs is all about, what M2 is all about, what you guys are trying to accomplish, and what the big mission is, how it differentiates itself from the rest of crypto.
Yeah, so I can do a quick introduction. I'm Rushi, one of the co-founders of Movement Labs. My background is more in engineering and cybersecurity. Started my career in distributed systems. Was one of the youngest engineers at United Health Group. Helped them convert their on-prem databases to cloud. So I have more of a background in distributed systems. Got the crypto bug, I'd say like 4.5 years ago, more in engineering. Was early to Cosmos and Ethereum DeFi engineering. Was a platform engineer. And I would say around August 2022, I stumbled across Move. For me, it was this New York Times article or something that said Facebook is launching this new programming language. And for me, it was really exciting because I was used to like 5 users in crypto and like 10 users on Ethereum overall. And this was an opportunity for Facebook to put 1 billion users on chain. So yeah, August 2022, started learning Move, built the first DEX on Aptos. My co-founder built the first yield aggregator. And then November 2022, we really started the movement thesis. The general thesis was bringing the Move language or Rust-based programming to the EVM. Started off in the Avalanche ecosystem, but found our way to what Movement is today, which is the first EVM-compatible Move virtual machine that lives on Ethereum as a zero-knowledge layer 2.
Yeah, you threw a lot of terms out there, which we're going to explore now, because I think that there's this idea of, I was watching one of your talks, and I think you referred to the Ethereum EVM as hot garbage, which is intriguing to explore when it comes to, I think, all the different kind of tactics and ways people are solving problems in crypto to scale this industry, whether it's the explosion of L2s that we've seen now, including Base and the like, and really more kind of, I guess, is it fair to say, pairing some of the existing activity on Ethereum in different ways to other chains using different languages like Aptos and Sui in a way you guys are building. I mean, what have you seen as kind of the real reason as to why you need to do that versus the other approaches?
Are you referring to like why EVM versus like MoveVM? Was that a question? Yeah. So I think my background is Solidity and core Ethereum engineering. And there's 2 major issues with the EVM. The first is speed. If you look at any EVM L2, most tap at 100 TPS. Inscriptions took down most layer 2s around 120 TPS. So in reality, none of the layer 2s or Ethereum scaling solutions can scale for anything beyond DEXs, lending protocols, things that actually require users. And second thing, and that often goes under the radar, is security. Every year there's $4.5 billion lost in smart contract hacks. Seems like every day there's a new $50 million hack. So the question is, how do you create more secure and formally verified systems where anyone can deploy a smart contract and deploy liquidity and feel secure? We've all been scammed, hacked, rugged, and grifted beyond disbelief. So the question is, okay, how do you create this blockchain programming environment that combines the best of throughput, so things like Solana-like experience, with your favorite auditor combined runtime? So the Move thesis was spawned by Facebook, where they said EVM is hot garbage. It doesn't scale. If we ever want to bring our billion users to Facebook, we can't have the chain going down 100 transactions per second, and we can't get hacked for $50 million a year. So built a new programming language and framework designed for speed and security, and our mission is to bring it to Ethereum.
Yeah, it kind of seems like a chicken and the egg problem, right? Because you mentioned
Yep.
inscriptions, and that's certainly something that showed kind of the scalability, transactions per second, and problems in terms of gas costs and the like. But then again, inscriptions kind of interesting in the way that you could maybe call it real, genuine activity, and
Yep.
detractors might say that's not really the case at all. But it is theoretical in showing what the limitations might be. I think we have a chart just in general of kind of the idea of where gas is on Ethereum in the way that we've been looking at, usability and where, on Ethereum mainnet and scaling all these things
Yep.
has been. But I was actually just on a panel with Mo from Aptos as well as Sergey from Chainlink to their announcement at Consensus. The first time that Chainlink was integrating their services with the Move programming language blockchain is a big announcement. But also, I think, well, I'll just play what Sergey said. He was talking about kind of what it means to signal to the capital markets that you can have what you just described, security, with a new programming language that came out of Facebook, and why that's
Yep.
important. Take a listen to what Sergey Nazarov told me on the panel down in Consensus.
So I think you need a scalable chain that provides strong security guarantees, and I think Move provides that in very large ways in the current way that it works. And I think there's even more growth in how they're optimizing the language and everything. So there's even more scalability and security that they'll be able to generate based on some of those core assumptions.
So it's really early. I just want to say right now, mainnet's not live for movement for the M2,
Yep.
correct? I mean, like when you talk about what you want to show over maybe, the rest of 2024, what does it kind of look like to maybe build on what Sergey's talking about there, the core assumptions?
Yeah, I mean, we have DevNet, and shortly we'll have testnet live for the public to use. So you'll be able to use the first suite of apps coming from the Move and EVM ecosystem that combine the best of security, speed, and even compatibility. I think obviously Aptos and Sui are two live Move chains, but it's never been done bringing it to Ethereum. There hasn't been that crossover between the Move and EVM and Ethereum landscape where people in the Ethereum community can't feel comfortable using it. Even usage on most of these layer ones, pretty limited, pretty early stage. It's similar to how Solana started when it first launched. The first year Solana was a pretty poor wallet, pretty poor user experience. It took around 3 to 4 years for it to scale and get to where it is today. I think the movie system is kind of where it's at today, where it's still early, it's still nascent, but we're doing a good job in terms of going to different markets. So Aptos is predominantly focused on institutional angle. I think Sui probably is more focused on gaming, and we're heavily focused on DeFi, bringing it to Ethereum. And the combination of all those things really enables users to try out Move and really love Move.
Yeah, I think attacking it in different ways is always interesting. And to your point, it doesn't happen overnight. I think we saw that. Solana's a good example. And even right now, with a lot of chains, kind of tap to earn games seem to be hot. We did have Ilya from Near on the show just a couple weeks ago, kind of lamenting
Yep.
the idea that there are so many blockchains now who have been able to raise. You guys raised $38 million, I think, a little bit earlier this year. But very few apps being used to attract users. I'm curious to get your take on kind of the right way to build out those ecosystems. Just want to play what Ilya told us, see if you agree. Here's what he said about all the chains being able to raise, but not so many apps right now. Take a listen.
But broadly speaking, right, we have right now probably like 10,000 infrastructure projects and like 50 apps, right, across the whole Web3. So that's a pretty like problematic state. And so I think it's really important to figure out like how do we start invest in getting people investing into applications so they actually have a fighting chance to bring it to market to get usage.
So you guys just announced the Battle of Olympus hackathon to accelerate the ecosystem growth at Movement. I think that's probably in the same vein. I mean, what do you make of, I guess, the tough thing to do to prove out, look, here's the infrastructure and the plumbing that can work for anything you want to build, and then attract the builders to use it?
Yeah, so I think one thing that has always gone wrong in passing system building is that there's no stickiness, right? So if you're another EVML2, what your go-to-market is, I'm going to get my 5 EVM DEXs, Lightning protocols, oracles, deploy that, and just hopefully launch a token that'll do well. The issue with that, it doesn't create stickiness. The developers and users that you have, they'll go over to the next chain when the next airdrop drops, and your chain is left like a ghost town. So the issue today that we're seeing is there's no intentionality behind building community and building systems, and B, the infrastructure they're building is actually not net new. There's like 500, like Ilya touched on, there's 500 infrastructure projects. Most of these are copy paste EVL2s that have no actual user differentiation. No one really cares how validity proof aligned you are, or how base your sequencing is, or like what kind of proof you're using. They simply care about user experience and the net new apps that can be built. If you look at most of these optimistic and ZK rollups, there's actually not much difference at all. Whereas this new category of next gen L2s, I call it us, and a few other folks bring SVM and parallelize EVM to Ethereum, they're actually able to say, hey, you have high throughput, you have formal verification, you have these fully on-chain apps that can be built only possible with these next-gen L2s. So I think that enables you to have these vendor lock-in where, for example, if you write Move, you're pretty much only able to build a movement. You can't go hop to 50 different chains. We're able to cultivate a movement-only community. I think the second thing is a lot of these L2s and ecosystems, they're not really giving, like they'll give the grants and call it a day, when in reality that isn't long-term aligned. I think most of the movement's efforts is helping our core teams raise, get to market, and have their own business models. So we have over like 8 teams now that have closed over $4 million each. Around 40 million in the movement ecosystem has been deployed in the last 3 weeks. And that's just been our BD team working directly with projects, getting them to market, and getting them to go to the next level.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I think, I'm curious to get your take around some of what you mentioned, just to build off your point around, Aptos' focus or maybe Sui's focus on gaming and what y'all are focused on when it comes to kind of DeFi and the idea of how you attract users. I mean, given kind of the evolution, since you dropped out of Vanderbilt, obviously we've come a long way. And weirdly, I think in the 2 years since you started building on Aptos back then. I mean, how do you look at the evolution of space in those 2 years to kind of say, are we in a winner-take-all market here? Is it still about specialization? How do you see kind of the plethora of chains right now trying to attack, in some instances, very similar opportunities?
It's exactly the same how it was in Web 2, where when you had the dot-com bubble, you had thousands of websites, hundreds of thousands of websites that were launched every day. And most of these websites had no product differentiation. They were trying to like front-run Amazon's narrative or front-run Google's narrative, try to get to market and get some revenue by vampire attacking each other. Same exact thing is happening in crypto today, where you have this, well, infrastructure is enabled you to launch custom rollups with pretty much no product differentiation, and everyone trying to fight for the same amount of liquidity and users. So I think it's actually net healthy because we're seeing this Cambrian explosion of different use cases, different infrastructure layers, different experimentation levels. But the truth is 99% of all these chains will die in the next 1 to 2 years. There'll only probably be 5 to 10 chains that make it out, either with killer go-to-market, net novel use cases, or just general liquidity modes. So I think the way we approach it is it hasn't really been, like high throughput environments hasn't really been done on Ethereum. You have like different role frameworks that promise quick withdrawal times. You have different DA layers, but there's so much saturation in that there's 10 different DA layers, there's 10 different role frameworks, and no one's really innovating an execution layer. So I think the way we look at it is there's an untapped market for us to really claim the throne. And even though it's like there will be multiple chains that live, ultimately it's only 5 to 6 chains that get the users, are sticky, and are considered blue chip. So I think in some sense it's still a fight to that.
Well, I think it's been interesting to kind of watch different playbooks and the way that they've been executed as chains come out. As we mentioned, a lot of people are excited about testnet and kind of your guys' evolution to come out and let people build on it. I know you got a couple announcements built around attracting people to what you're building. How did those come about? What are they? What do we got to share on this kind of debut of Rushi on Coinage? And what are you excited about when it comes to those?
Yeah, so I mean, we have testnet coming up end of July. Excited to see all the projects and apps go live and people get to use the chain finally. It's been over 2 years in building, and we're at a point where we're product complete and feature complete. Still a lot left to do. There's especially exploring ideas around shared sequencing and kind of contraring the typical opinion that centralized sequencers are here to stay. I think more importantly, I'm excited for the ecosystem, right? We have some interesting apps like Bracket, which is a fully on-chain prediction market. Hasn't really been done before yet, like Polymarket, I think, but Bracket's fully on-chain with sports betting live and DGen mode, which is leveraged betting. We have Infinite Seas, which is a fully on-chain MMO. And then we have some really cool consumer apps like Move with Friends is a socialify app that enables you essentially have like the friend tech like experience, but without the low latency and the UX issues that we've seen. Beyond that, we have like a great suite of DeFi apps like Meridian and Echelon, which enable secure lending and secure DEX transactions without needing to worry about, hey, if I deploy my capital, I'm going to get hacked. I think overall, I'm pretty excited for this like innovation execution layer. For over 5 years, EVM has cemented itself as the end all be all. When we started this journey, everyone told us that this made no sense, that the EVM won. And today we're seeing this narrative kind of get dispelled where you have Solana VM, you have Move VM, and other VMs really coming to market and challenging the norm that the EVM has won, when in fact it's probably lost at this point. And the next 2 years, we're going to see the EVM pretty much go to zero.
It's a bold claim, and I think also I saw you chatting with Austin Federa on his podcast. Solana
Yep.
seems to be one. I don't know if there's any like emulation going on between what you've seen them be able to do with Solana and what you guys are prepared to do as well, because it's not just kind of the software or like code that they've been working on, but also like hardware partnerships when it comes to their phone.
Yep.
Kind of curious if that is kind of something that you, I guess, admire or emulate as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have a huge partnership with Up Network coming up. It's a Tokyo-based Japanese phone manufacturing company, and we're rolling out the Movement phone shortly, which enables users to use Movement wallets, Movement apps directly in a mobile interface. It's built by a complete third party and a team part of the ecosystem that we work pretty closely with. I think Solana Mobile is really interesting because it was the first mobile first experience for crypto users. However, the issue was that it was made by Solana Labs, where obviously Solana Labs is focusing on a lot of different things. They're a phenomenal engineering team, but they're focused on building a blockchain, building a community, and the phone is more of like a fifth or sixth priority. Whereas Up Network is a team fully in the moving system that's spun out, fully focused on delivering this product, and they've done a pretty good job of shipping the product, getting community. So over the next few weeks, you can expect to see a lot of movement phone stuff. But I think Solana is like honestly a role model. Like Tolly is probably the best founder in the space. He's built a community. He wakes up every day and drives to compete. I think what Solana does differently than other Ethereum-based systems is focus on user experience. So something like Blinks is not something that's been thought of really like Farcaster, but most Ethereum people are focused on the wrong things, where they're focused on like arguing over validity proofs or this base sequencing, things that the users don't care. Whereas Solana has this ability to really focus on user experience, high throughput environments, and just creating better apps. And I think over time that scales.
Yeah, Anatoly, I think one of those people that a lot of people, at least in our community, despite being built on Ethereum, also cheer in the way that he was the first guest to ever come out to Coinage's studio here in Brooklyn in person for an interview right when we were getting started. It really does lean into, I think, a lot of the projects in the space that emulate what Web3 is all about. But I'd be remiss, Rushi, if we didn't ask you some personal questions before we wrap this whole thing up, because we were chatting before we started. Anatoly might be on the older spectrum of crypto founders, even though he's a young guy. And you dropped out of Vanderbilt to pursue your crypto dreams. I'm just kind of curious how big of a decision that was. And looking back, I know it hasn't been a long time, but looking back on it, what you would have told your younger self now, or maybe in advice to people who might be weighing similar decisions in this way.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say drop it earlier. I think like even like when I dropped out, it was like we didn't have a lot of money. Like I had like $1,000 in my bank account. We had no traction. We had like 3 investors who were like kind of believing in us. But it was more so a bet on me and Cooper, where we really believed in this language. We really believed in the work we were doing. This was literally the week after FTX, when everyone claimed that crypto was going to zero and pretty much everyone left the industry. And I think the way I looked at it is like you're not going to get anywhere in life if you follow the norm. You have to do the contrarian bets. You have to go against the norm. So in that time, Move was considered dead. Everyone was like, "Why would you drop out of school for that?" And even crypto was considered dead. So people were like, "Oh, what the hell are you doing?" So I mean, like obviously it worked out, and we built a great team today. But If I could go back, I would drop out earlier, take the plunge into crypto earlier. We're in a great industry where we have such like-minded people. We're creating the future of finance. Every day we wake up and cultivate literally the future of our economic systems, and anyone else who's not in the industry is simply sidelined.
Well, in the spirit of bold claims and kind of bucking the norm, we often ask founders who come on for their bold predictions, big bold claims, we like to call them. It doesn't really necessarily have to be about movement exactly, but could be about the entire space. For things that you see shaping up, we're now at the halfway point in 2024. End of year predictions, Rushi, to come from you for big bold claims that maybe people aren't expecting?
The era of infrastructure is over, where the EVM L2s, the base sequencers, the fraud proofs and validity proof discussions are pretty much useless today. Even if you look at retail markets for recent token launches, users don't care about the random new EVM L2 launches. They want user experience, they want differentiated products, they want unique go-to-markets, they want sound tokenomics. Even in this bull market, we're seeing this fatigue of new infrastructure protocols. So the kind of the years of funding random EVM projects that all get pumped and dumped is kind of over. The transition to application-specific infrastructure and applications in general is here. And we're seeing that in private rounds with applications being prioritized. We're seeing that in even infrastructure, where the number one question any infrastructure player gets is, what are the apps you enable? What are the net new use cases you enable? The market's tired. Investors are tired. It's time for infrastructure to burn.
Yeah, it's really exciting also, as you guys are kind of on this eve in July, as you say, rolling out the blockchain for people to use it, which is super exciting. And I think maybe you uniquely have seen a lot of launches over the last, I guess it's been crypto summer, a bunch of chains coming live this year, and a lot of back and forth around airdrops and lost optionality and lost opportunities to really, I think, delight users. I mean, how do you look at maybe mistakes that you personally want to avoid with the way that you could potentially roll all of this out? Is there one mistake that you say we are not going to repeat?
I think transparency is the worst thing. A lot of these airdrops were resulted from farmers and users spending the last 2 or 3 years farming this chain, and then being told they're being incentivized rewards, and at the last minute the foundation is like, hey, actually we don't care about users, not going to reward them. So when you create a sense of entitlement where people have spent 2 years plus using apps, being loyal community members, and not getting anything in return, it creates a lot of resentment. For example, some people in recent launches put over $50 million into TVL for layer 2 and got back $50,000, which from API point of view is pretty poor. So I think with that, you have to manage expectations, be transparent. I think Celestia had one of the best airdrop campaigns where everyone's happy, where if it comes by surprise, the community is very happy. Where if you're able to say like, hey, we're just going to come to market, put it in the hands of the apps, let the apps decide the airdrop mechanisms, and create surprise mechanisms, usually that leads to better sentiment. Whereas if you do like this points program and people farm the points and then don't get tokens, they're pretty unhappy, as they should. So it's kind of balancing that trade-off.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are learning as we go. Obviously, there's no set rules here, and even the rules that aren't set come back to bite people sometimes when it comes to regulation and everything. So not easy. Never easy as a Web3 founder out there to navigate all this, but I appreciate you coming on, man. It's super exciting. Congrats on everything that y'all have built already up until this point. You got to come back on as we move forward with your guys' launch. Super excited for what Movement's been able to do. Congrats again, Rushi Manche, the co-founder of Movement Labs. Thanks again for the time, man.
Thanks so much, and let's do it in New York next time.
Right on, brother. Sounds good.